Calvin is not only my friend, he is also the district newly, still breaking it in, district superintendent for our denomination. So I'll let him share a little bit about that instead of stealing your thunder if you want to, kind of explain what that means or not. But he's a really good guy right here that I've known for a while, and God's got his hand on him and is doing some amazing things through him. And so I'm really excited that he was able to be here with us today to share what God put on his heart. So thanks, buddy. Glad you're here.
Thanks for inviting me. It's good to be here with you. It's good to be a part of a district that is so vast. From metropolitan New York all the way down through throughout all New Jersey and into Philly. We get a chance to partner with another district in seeing God move in Philadelphia area. This is a joy and an honor and a privilege for me to be here as I make my way through the district to different churches and different places. It is just blowing my mind seeing the things that God is doing, experiencing how God is moving in worship in different settings, seeing the love of Christ being poured out, not only in the church, but just listening to the class that you're going to be offering. How is it that you share your faith? How is it that you get to help others encounter Jesus? Hearing the passion for letting people come to a place where they have the opportunity to come to know Jesus. This is exciting. This is what we're about in the Metropolitan District. We're a district that is diverse when it comes to generations. It is a district that is diverse when it comes to cultures. And our goal, our aim, our heart is to see the transformative power and work of Jesus happening throughout the district in a holistic manner so that people come to encounter Jesus all through their lives. Our goal, our aim, our desire is to be a place where we see ministry happening because of the power of the Holy Spirit. To be a place where we see not only the leaders in our district develop, but the leaders in our churches developed. And that we lead from a place where we have healthy souls. To be a place where we together are moving forward in what we call kingdom justice and mercy. That the areas where the justice of God is not happening, we want to be agents of change in those areas so that that part of who God has called us to be, people who carry out justice, we see where there are unjust things happening and we speak into that. But we don't want to just see what God is doing here. We want to be a place that advances globally. We want to see what God is doing around the world. We want to partner with His Spirit in seeing people reached around the world. And then, as we've seen, the world is there, but the world is here. And so as we go to the world, we also want to be a part of ministering to the world that is here. This is what we're about in the district. We want to see all of Jesus transforming all of us throughout all of our district. And I'm glad that we're here today. I'm glad to be a part of what God is doing in this church this morning in this season of your life. And so as Pastor Mike and I were talking about today and my being here, he told me that you're in a series called Never the Same. So rather than do something else, I just thought let's just jump into where you are. The series on Never the Same. See, I asked him, send me your PowerPoint, send me your background for what it is that you've been doing this series, and I'll just jump into that. And when he sent me the background, there was a message that he preached a few weeks ago, and as I was putting this together, I came across this saying that he had, this definition of opportunity that he had a few weeks ago. Opportunity. A favorable time or occasion when we are in a position to make a decision that will impact our lives in a positive way. A favorable time or occasion when we are in a position to make a decision that will impact our lives in a positive way. I saw that definition and I thought about where we were going today. And I thought, let's just jump off of that definition, because I think today we want to expand upon that. And we want to talk about opportunity in terms of risk. And so today, we want to look at this. Opportunity. That moment where we determine that the positive outcome of the risk we are about to take far outweighs the consequences we might incur for taking it. that moment, that time, that period, might even be that second where as we're thinking through the opportunity that's before us, we come to a place where we determine that the positive outcome of the risk that we're about to take far outweighs the consequences we might incur for taking it. How many of us know that risk, good risk, positive risk, still has consequences? Things that you know on the other side of it, if you jump in and you take it, it'll be good, but it may not go the way that you think it will go. And if it doesn't go that way, what are the consequences? What am I going to have to walk through? What am I going to have to live through? What am I going to have to incur as a result of it? Those consequences might be minor, or they could be major. But is the outcome that could happen so good that it's worth the consequences? I went to Nyack College, and I toured with the school over the summer months. There was a tour group that went around singing at different churches, and I had the opportunity to be a part of the tour group. So I went one summer. My mom and dad were great with it one summer, but my mom made it very clear, I'll let you go this summer, but next summer you come home and you work at home because you haven't been home since you left for college. I said, okay, deal. Well, the next summer came, and I was asked if I'd go on the tour group again. I had made it very clear to my mom that I would be home. But the wonderful thing about the tour group is that when you came back, there was money waiting for you that you could apply to your college bill and help with your tuition. But I had said to my mom I'd be home. Yeah. How am I going to call her and tell her that I'm not coming home for the summer? The outcome over here is money on my college bill. The risk is upsetting my mom. And nobody wants to upset their mom. So I sat there trying to make this phone call, trying to figure it out. It was a risk worth taking because other than this, I'd have to take out more loans. Now, that seems minor. It did turn out well. My mom and I did get through it, and I went on the summer tour group, and everything went well. That seemed minor. But here I am now, some number of years later, in this new role. And my wife and I had come to the conclusion that the Lord was saying that she needed to quit her job in order to be partnered with me in this new role. It was a risk. It's a financial risk. How would it be if we took this risk? The opportunity before us was far greater than the possible consequences, at least on paper, or at least in our minds. Let's put it that way, in our minds, because when I looked at the paper, I'm like, Lord, I trust you as long as I can see it in the checkbook. And he's saying, do you really trust me? Do you really want to encounter me in a way that you've never encountered me before? Is the outcome worth that much to you? See, I think there are opportunities that God puts before us all the time where he's calling us to take a risk, calling us to reach out and touch him. But we get caught up in the possible consequences. What is that outcome going to look like? What if it doesn't go the way that I want it to go? What if it doesn't happen the way that I think it should go? There are consequences to all of the risks. And yet, when it comes to encountering Jesus, he's calling us to take risks. And the big question that he's asking is, do you trust me? Do you trust me? Here's where we come today to this story in Luke chapter 8. We see it also in Matthew. We see it also in Mark. It is the story of a woman who has come to be known throughout history as the hemorrhaging woman, or in old language, the woman with the issue of blood. 12 long years she had walked around with this hemorrhaging condition. 12 long years, no one could do anything for her. She had tried everything possible, and she hears that Jesus is passing through her town, and she sees before her an opportunity that, if the risk she took was had the kind of outcome that she was thinking it would, the kind of outcome that she was hoping for, the kind of outcome that she was desperate for, that would be wonderful. But there were consequences to the risk that she was about to take. And yet she encounters Jesus in a way that is powerful and transformational. This particular story of this woman is sandwiched between a bigger story that's going on with a leader in the synagogue whose daughter is sick, whose daughter is dying. And he comes to Jesus, and he takes the risk to go up to Jesus and say to Jesus, I just need you to come and touch my daughter, because if you touch my daughter, I know something will be happening. Can you come before she dies? And as Jesus is on the way, this woman comes in through the crowd. And I'm bringing that piece out because we will go back to that a little bit. But today, for this moment, let's look at Luke chapter 8, beginning at verse 42, the second part of verse 42, continue on through verse 48, and we'll read together. It says this: As Jesus went, the people pressed around him, and there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And though she had spent all her living on physicians, she could not be healed by anyone. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And Jesus says, who was it that touched me? When all denied it, Peter said, Master, the crowd surround you and are pressing in on you. But Jesus said, someone touched me, for I perceived that the power has gone out from me. And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling, and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him, and how she had been immediately healed. And he said to her, Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. I look at this encounter, I look at this story, I look at this interaction, and there's a question that comes to mind from the text that I want to put out this morning. Why is it that a risky encounter with Jesus brought transformation and healing like no other encounter could bring? Why is it? I mean, it says that she had gone to all of these doctors. I would gather that she had not just gone to the traditional physicians. She may have gone to places where people said, look, I'll put this concoction together and this will work. She had tried everything, and she had spent her money on everything. Nothing happened. What was so different about this encounter that brought the kind of healing that she was looking for? Let's make this personal. Why is it, or how is it, that if we are willing to take a risk and reach out to Jesus, what would be different about the transformation that he brings in comparison to reaching out to others? What is it about Jesus? Why is it that he can bring transformation, not just to this woman, but to us? Why is it that the healing that Jesus does is so transformational in our lives in comparison to the kind of healing that others have to offer? There are a couple of things that I see here, and the first one is this: Jesus deeply discerns every moment you reach out to him. He deeply discerns every moment that you reach out to him. It says that Jesus went and people crowded, pressed around him. And then he says, as this happens, someone touched me, for I felt the power gone out of me. And this is the thing that stood out to me. It says that the woman saw that she was not hidden. Now, get the picture. Jesus is pressing through the crowd. You've got people coming in on every side. It is clear that as he's walking, there are people bumping up against him. There are people touching him. There are people touching him here. There are people probably touching him back here. There are people probably touching him here. Everybody is touching him. Everybody's pressing in. That's why Peter said, really? You want to know who touched you? There's a whole crowd around you. I love that that has an exclamation point, because we kind of get this picture that when people talk to Jesus in Scripture, they're so nice and they're so loving and they're so, the picture we get is Peter saying, Master, I understand, but everyone is coming around you and they're bound to touch you. No, I think Peter was like, really? You're going to be telling me that somebody touched you? Of course somebody touched you. Do you see all these people around you? They're in front of you. They're on the side of you. They're behind you. Somebody touched you. We can be sure of that. I bet you if we walk another couple of feet, somebody else is going to touch you. And you say somebody touched me? Yeah, somebody touched you. I think that's what was going on. But notice, not even facing the woman. Notice, not even knowing the woman was there. Notice, not even having a glimpse in his peripheral vision of the woman. Jesus said, someone touched me because I felt power go out of me. Discerning. Perception. Here, this woman is sneaking up, thinking there's no way he'll see me. There's no way he'll notice me. And it was something where she didn't want to be noticed, because she was in that crowd, if you could say it this way, illegally. She was considered unclean. There's no way she should have been walking in that crowd. The law says she should not be touching. Hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. I look at this encounter, I look at this story, I look at this interaction, and there's a question that comes to mind from the text that I want to put out this morning. Why is it that a risky encounter with Jesus brought transformation and healing like no other encounter could bring? Why is it? I mean, it says that she had gone to all of these doctors. I would gather that she had not just gone to the traditional physicians. She may have gone to places where people said, look, I'll put this concoction together and this will work. She had tried everything, and she had spent her money on everything. Nothing happened. What was so different about this encounter that brought the kind of healing that she was looking for? Let's make this personal. Why is it, or how is it, that if we are willing to take a risk and reach out to Jesus, what would be different about the transformation that he brings in comparison to reaching out to others? What is it about Jesus? Why is it that he can bring transformation, not just to this woman, but to us? Why is it that the healing that Jesus does is so transformational in our lives in comparison to the kind of healing that others have to offer? There are a couple of things that I see here, and the first one is this. Jesus deeply discerns every moment you reach out to him. He deeply discerns every moment that you reach out to him. It says that Jesus went and people crowded, pressed around him. And then he says, as this happens, someone touched me, for I felt the power gone out of me. And this is the thing that stood out to me. It says that the woman saw that she was not hidden. Now, get the picture. Jesus is pressing through the crowd. You've got people coming in on every side. It is clear that as he's walking, there are people bumping up against him. There are people touching him. There are people touching him here. There are people probably touching him back here. There are people probably touching him here. Everybody is touching him. Everybody's pressing in. That's why Peter said, really? You want to know who touched you? The whole crowd around you. I love that that has an exclamation point, because we kind of get this picture that when people talk to Jesus in Scripture, they're so nice and they're so loving and they're so, the picture we get is Peter saying, Master, I understand, but everyone is coming around you and they're bound to touch you. No, I think Peter was like, really? You're going to be telling me that somebody touched you? Of course somebody touched you. Do you see all these people around you? They're in front of you. They're on the side of you. They're behind you. Somebody touched you. We can be sure of that. I bet you if we walk another couple of feet, somebody else is going to touch you. And you say somebody touched me? Yeah, somebody touched you. I think that's what was going on. But notice, not even facing the woman. Notice, not even knowing the woman was there. Notice, not even having a glimpse in his peripheral vision of the woman. Jesus said, someone touched me because I felt power go out of me. Discerning. Perception. Here, this woman is sneaking up, thinking there's no way he'll see me. There's no way he'll notice me. And it was something where she didn't want to be noticed, because she was in that crowd, if you could say it this way, illegally. She was considered unclean. There's no way she should have been walking in that crowd. The law says she should not be touching anyone and no one should be touching her. In fact, it was so serious that just her presence and the wind blowing, anyone who would have been in the wind that was blowing would have been considered unclean. What a risk she was taking. How crazy is that? Of course she wanted to be hidden. Of course she didn't want anyone to know. But she knew the risk that she was about to take. The outcome of it, should it be the healing that she was looking for, would be far greater than the consequence of being found out. Let me sneak through. So much in this crowd, they're all looking at Jesus. Maybe by chance, no one will notice me. And the only thing I have to do is reach out. I'm going to take this risk. Here's the picture I get in my mind. She does this, she immediately feels healing, and she's going to go and turn and run away, and he goes, someone touched me. How did he know? And so he turns around, just as she comes trembling. I'm not hidden anymore. I'd like to have been, but I'm not hidden anymore. I'm found out. Why don't I just admit it? But what she didn't know was that Jesus wasn't in the exposing business. Jesus was in the discerning business. And they're two different things. See, when we risk exposure, the consequences tend to be negative. But when Jesus discerns and brings something out, it's always for the work that he wants to do. Here he's on his way to bring healing to a man's daughter who's nearly dying. And as he's doing that, he's going, yeah, there's someone else who needs a touch. And notice, he didn't even touch her. She touched him. And power goes out. And he discerns immediately. There's an encounter that has just taken place that has been transformational. I want to bring attention to it, not for the sake of exposure, but for the sake of celebration. Not for the sake of exposure, but for the sake of celebration. Friends, he always discerns deeply every time we reach out to him. We don't go unnoticed by Jesus. We don't go unseen by Jesus. We don't go unrecognized by Jesus. But it's not for the sake of exposure. It's for the sake of celebration. Let's rejoice in the fact that the power has just gone out of me, he's saying. Let's rejoice in the fact that someone has been touched by me, he's saying. Let's rejoice in the fact that someone has experienced an effusion of the power of God in a way that has just transformed their life. Somebody touched me because I felt the power go out of me. And she realized she was not hidden. That's significant. Because in order to be protected from the consequences of the law, she had to live a life of hiddenness for 12 years. Can you imagine no contact with your family? Can you imagine the community that you had is now gone? Can you imagine the people who supported you now look at you with disdain? Can you imagine the sense of, I used to belong, but now I can't belong. Now I don't belong. Now no one can relate to me. Now no one wants to relate to me because just being downwind from me makes them unclean. And so, yes, she goes through the crowd in a hidden manner, and for the first time in 12 years, she is hidden no longer. On her end, when she found out she couldn't be hidden, there was great fear. On his end, he brought her out of her hiddenness because of great joy. Jesus deeply discerns every moment you reach out to him. There are those familiar touches that we can stand with our eyes closed, and we know just by the way that hand is laid on us who it is. I had that encounter, this experience this morning as I was being prayed for. Over here, my eyes are closed, and I just felt a hand. I didn't even have to open my eyes to realize it was my wife. Because we can be in a crowded room with a ton of people rubbing up against me, and all she has to do is this, and I know it's her. That's the way it is when we reach out to Jesus. There can be a crowd pressing in. There can be someone else who's reaching out at the same time, and he knows it's you. Friends, you are not unnoticed by Jesus. You are not hidden to Jesus. He deeply discerns every moment that you reach out to him. And second, the encounter with Jesus is so different than any other encounters because Jesus deeply discerns every place you need a healing touch from him. It's not that he just discerns every moment that you reach out to him, but he knows deeply what it is that you need from him. She was just worried about healing. He knew she needed something greater. Here is how he answers her when she says, look, I just reached out. I knew if I touched you, I'd be healed. He says these words, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. There's a lot that he's saying there. First of all, for 12 years, she's been known as the hemorrhaging woman. She had no name. Before this happened, she probably was named in the community. Now when people saw her, oh, you don't want to walk near her. Stay away from her. You over there, the woman who's bleeding, don't come any closer. That's how she was known for 12 years. But Jesus starts off by calling her daughter. And the woman who had no name is named again. And the woman who had no dignity is given dignity again. And immediately, this woman who was outside of the community, with just that word daughter, is brought back into the community. Because what he did in doing that is remind her, I see you. I know who you are a descendant of. I know that you're a part of this community. I know you've lived on the outskirts, but I am declaring to you in that one word, you are on the outskirts no longer. This was more than just what was going on in her physically. Her dignity had been stripped, and he was bringing it back into play. She says to him, I knew if I touched you, I will be healed. And he says to her, your faith has made you well. In other words, what you were looking for physically, I knew there was something deeper emotionally and spiritually that needed to happen. And then he says these words, go in peace. That word peace was, let me restore you to completeness. Let me restore you to a wholeness inside and a wholeness here that you've been missing for 12 years. In Hebrew, there's a word called chesed. Translated in the New Testament in the Greek, it's a word called irene. Both of them mean the same thing. To have the kind of well-being, body, soul, and spirit, and community-wise, that allows you to lie down at night without having worry. For 12 years, every night, she laid down. She did not have chesed. For 12 years, she lied down wondering, what is it going to be like tomorrow? Will I get healed? Will I be back in the community? Will people like me again? Will I get my dignity back? Will I even have a name again? And in one phrase, with one word, Jesus says, here it is. It's almost like she said, I'm reaching out to touch you because I just want my body healed. And he says, bet, I'll do you one better. Let me give you back what you didn't even know you were missing. Let me give you back what you didn't even know you were lacking. Let me give you back what has been troubling you in the depths of your soul. When I was campus pastor at Nye College, we had a night where we were praying for students, and we were asking, is there something that you need Jesus to do, something you would like Jesus to do in your life? Is there healing that you'd like to take place? And as we were praying, there was a young man who was coming up the aisle. I won't use his name, but he has given me permission to tell this story. He's coming up the aisle, and he had a little bit of a limp, and he comes and he sits down in the chair. There I stood with a couple of students and asked him what he wanted, and he said, I've had problems with my ankle for a long time. I used to play football. I had some issues with it. I got a break. There's some pins there, but I've had problems with it ever since. And I'd just like Jesus to heal my ankle. So we said, okay, let's pray for you. We began to pray. And the student, I'm standing here, the young man sitting here. The student who was over here came over to me, and she whispered in my ear, and she said, Pastor Kelvin, I don't know why I'm getting this, but I just keep hearing the word family, and my hands feel kind of hot. And so I just went, okay, how about we do this? You lay your hands on his ankle, and we'll pray. And then we'll figure out what that means. So we just kept praying for him. And finally, I leaned over and said, why don't you ask him if that means something to you? And she said to him, does the word family mean anything to you? He broke out in tears. I mean, just flood. And he began to tell the story of the brokenness that had happened in his family over a number of years and how that also affected his life. And so our prayer switched from his ankle to praying for him and his family. And when we finished, the sense of peace that was on him is indescribable. So he was getting ready to go, and I was like, oh, wait, let's pray for your ankle. This is what he said. You don't have to worry about that. As you were praying for my family, something happened in my ankle. See, Jesus knew the deeper need that was going on in his life. Jesus was able to discern the place that he needed healing. What presents is not always what Jesus wants to do. What this woman presented was just the symptom of the deeper need, and Jesus went for it. Friends, Jesus deeply discerns every moment you reach out to him. Jesus deeply discerns every place you need a healing touch from him. Encounters with Jesus are transformational because of that. No matter who else you come into contact with, they cannot fully discern every moment that you reach out. No matter who else you come in contact with, they cannot deeply discern every place that you need healing. But Jesus can. Jesus can. I close with this. In the book of Malachi, we read these words, "But for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings. You shall go out leaping like calves from the stall." That word that Malachi was giving to God's people was preceded by a word of destruction and a word of if you're not going to follow what I'm saying, this is the end that's before you. But then rises this word of hope. The Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings. Why am I using this today? Let's jump to where this woman was. As she reached out to touch Jesus and the end of his garment, it is possible that what she touched was the fringe of an undergarment that he was wearing, where the fringes on the four corners would hang out. And as he's walking and that fringe is flowing, she reaches out and touches. And she's healed. This word from Malachi speaks of Jesus, the one who has healing in his wings. Even then, God was saying to Israel, this is what's coming. Even now, as we look back to there, see this story, and we talk about today, God is saying to us, an encounter with Jesus brings deep healing like you cannot imagine, because he deeply discerns every moment you reach out to him, and he deeply discerns every place you need a healing touch from him. So let me close by asking you this. Where in your life do you need to take a risk and reach out and encounter a deeper healing of Jesus today? He will discern every touch. And you might be thinking, well, this room is full of people. If we're all reaching out to him today, that's like the crowd pressing in. Yes, but each and every one of us is like the woman who reached out, because he's able to discern every touch, every moment where you reach out. Where is it that you need a deeper touch of healing in your life? Whatever it is, present it to him. He knows what you present, but he also knows what you need. And if you're willing to take the risk, he's willing to touch you there. So I'm just going to invite you to close, as we close, to take a moment, take a couple of moments, and in the quietness of this time, start your prayer by this: Jesus, I need. And where is it that you need healing in your life? And today I'm taking the risk to reach out and touch you. Let's just take a couple moments. And quiet at this moment, bow your heads. Take that risk. And he is more than able to make you completely well and to restore peace in your life.